Hi everyone and welcome to the Flute Practice. My name is Tatiana and today we're going to take a look at how to play those intervals, those jumps, those leaps that kind of make our playing usually a bit of a nightmare. So let's go check it out. So similarly to the high notes, similarly to, just basic good tone production, a lot of, surprise, surprise, the basics apply yet again. We do not want to be too tight here. We want to be nice and released and supple so that we can really adjust the embouchure. We want to not think so much of being tight and less tight, but also thinking forward and less forward as we get to those interval jumps. And of course, a good old support is absolutely key in all of this. So those are kind of some of our fundamentals we want to really think about. A really fantastic exercise that I'm going to recommend you do before you even approach this is the note bending exercise. We did this in some of the other videos. I will link you to this in a moment. Really go and just practice your note bending. Practice, just because it gives your embouchure that incredible flexibility that we need for these jumps. Also, it's going to help you greatly with your intonation with these jumps. Remember, the higher up on the flute we go, the more sharp we tend to be. And the lower down we go, the more flat we tend to be. So we have to kind of always be compensating as we're changing the registers, as we're changing dynamics, and so on and so forth. So the note bending is just a great way to kind of get all of this loose and free. First exercise that I would really and truly recommend is an exercise we did last week in our piccolo video, which is the della Sonorite, the exercise where we are slowly increasing the interval by a semitone each time. I'm going to start on G. I'm going to show you how this works and I'll explain a little bit. So we start on G and then we go to G sharp, G, A, G, B flat, G, B, and so on. So now you can see what my lips are slowly, as those intervals increase, are slowly having to adjust more and more and more. And why I really like this exercise is because it gives us that possibility of just slowly increasing those interval jumps. If you kind of get hooked somewhere, you get stuck somewhere, or like there's an interval, you're like, that's not working, go back a step, see if you can get that nice and smooth, and then carry on. Maybe in a day, you kind of get stuck at that interval, and that's okay. You come back to it tomorrow and you retry it, and maybe in a week's time you will, have that interval sorted. Remember, all these muscles are constantly learning and figuring out what to do and how to do it. And it's a kind of a beautiful feedback system going on with the brain. So your muscles are trying stuff out. Your ears are hearing, oh, that sounds nice, or oh, that doesn't sound nice. And then your brain is making templates of what works and what doesn't work. And then the brain is resending that back down to the muscle so that by choice and your own will, you can kind of decide, okay, I'm going to do this now, and that works. So it's unfortunately one of those things you do kind of just have to practice and really explore. But bearing in mind the basics, support, which we're going to chat about in just a minute in a really, I think a very cool way that I have kind of come to understand this. Support, and here not being tense, but if you can see what I'm doing when I'm going up to the registers. I'm exaggerating that a little bit just so that you can see it. It's more forward than thinking tight. I hope you can see that. In reality, when we really want to do these interval jumps really fast, we want to minimize the amount of movement here. So I'm going to, especially for those who've kind of getting these interval jumps pretty good, it's kind of working, and now you're wanting to speed them up. Your first step is to really see how little movement you can have here and still get those jumps. So I'm going to start with the octave. So I'm really minimizing almost, and even if you crack the notes and you find out, okay, that was too little movement, I need to step it up a bit. That's really what you want to do, experiment and explore. I can't say this enough times, without tension, rather just really flexible, supple embouchure. The The other thing to be a little bit aware of is that you're not making too much of the jumps in your throat, that you're not creating the jumps here too much. This can sometimes be quite a subtle thing, so you know, you kind of just got to feel maybe if it's happening, maybe you discover it, maybe you don't, but just kind of be aware of what's going on here. You can do wonderful things like the singing and playing those intervals. So I, for example, discovered there on my G sharp that I was possibly holding a little bit of tension here, because the second I released that tension with the singing and playing, it suddenly wasn't really working. So, you know, these are nice little exercises just to kind of figure out if you are doing too much here. There's a really cool exercise that I think works very well for understanding how the support works in these interval jumps. And that exercise is this guy, Robert Dick, Tone Development Through Extended Techniques. It's a really great book. Seriously recommend all of you get it. He's actually got a YouTube channel as well, so I'd seriously also recommend going and checking that out. He talks about some very cool stuff. This guy is, you know, one of our really great teachers of these extended techniques and how to use them effectively. So basically, if you have the book, I'm working from page 13, and what he does is he's just practicing octaves, and what he does is he adds actual words or syllables, or actually I suppose they're kind of like vowels that he adds to them. It is about mouth shape as well, and creating the right mouth shape, which helps a lot. I'm going to recommend you just try this exercise out and feel what happens rather than me trying to explain it. So the first thing he says is we're going to start with C to C, and he talks about a ooh ah, ooh ah. So okay, so we already feel a little bit of that support coming along. Then he moves when he's looking at a sort of piano C to a pianissimo. So now we're decrescendoing as we go up to that high note. He talks now about a ooh I, and you can feel ooh I for the E. You're already having to have a bit more support. Some of them that I particularly like is when we start jumping sort of 2 octaves or into the nasty octaves like F sharp to F sharp. And what he does is a very interesting thing, and that is he says I. So there's a kind of an in-between step of an I. And the I part happens kind of in between those 2 notes. So you have I, and you can hear it very clearly, or you can't hear it, you can feel it very clearly when you do this exercise. What it does, it prepares your support for that high note. And this is really what we need when we're playing interval jumps, is we need to have that support ready and prepared. We've got to kind of think of the note just before we play the note, and not as we're playing the note like, oh, I've got to support now, okay, because usually it's too late and we've cracked the note already. So you kind of got to think just a minute before of that support. If you're playing really fast kind of interval leaps, you want to keep that support quite consistently there. So you want to think not but you want to think so the support is like riding on one wave of air. You just and rather thinking of small movements here to change that airstream. Because if we start messing around with the support for each note, we're going to be in a bit of trouble, and it's going to slow us down a lot. So very small movements here, and you want to really have that support consistent. The smaller you can make these movements, the more refined you can make these movements, you know, that you only really using absolutely as much energy, tension, movement as you need, the quicker and more accurate your interval jumps are going to become. A wonderful exercise to really practice the embouchure, specifically the embouchure side and the support side of these interval leaps, is the harmonic exercise. So what you can do is either on a C or on a D. I'm gonna do it on a D for now. C is easier, but for those that are still struggling with your low notes or your low Cs, we're gonna just, you know, take it a little bit easy and do it on a D. What we're gonna start off is we're just gonna go to the first harmonic. Now, if you've never done harmonics in your life, Just a quick little kind of background. Harmonics are, the flute is based in the harmonic series, which means just by angling the airstream differently, we can get different notes. And this is actually how we play the whole instrument. There's the basic fingerings, and after that, it's all just angling that airstream differently to get the harmonic notes. So what we want to do is we want to go D, and it's like playing second octave D, but we're going to keep this finger down. So and you can see once again lips are coming forward. I'm increasing the support a little bit and I'm raising that airstream. Now I'm going to do even more extreme of that and get to the next harmonic. And to the next one. And then to the next one. And as you can hear, I'm really playing between those intervals. So it's not just about getting those harmonics, which in the beginning you just got to kind of figure out how to get them. But it's also about controlling and moving between. You can then start doing things once you've mastered this. You're kind of getting it pretty good. You're going to jump between harmonics and quite consciously. So your lips are really getting used to that feeling of where those harmonics are, and it's a control thing. It's about really getting this control spot on. Why this is so useful is because we can use harmonics to practice our interval jumps as well. So for example, a famous interval harmonic, A, if we play A to E. Okay, a lot of us get that, right? Because A and E are sitting on the same harmonic, on the same harmonic scale. So if we play it without adding these two fingers, we can get to that E, right? It's the third harmonic on an A. And if we practice that, getting those harmonics, and then put these fingers down for the E, it becomes a lot easier and a lot smoother. We can do this with all of our, you can sort of play around and figure out what the harmonics are. So maybe you want to just start with a D even. Let's go back to our D. We do our third harmonic to the A, right? And then play the actual real fingering. And you can kind of move your way through this. It's a really nice way to practice these kind of harmonic, especially, as I said, once you're in the same harmonic series in a note, it becomes particularly difficult to do those interval jumps because the danger of slipping into the wrong harmonic is so easy. So if you've been struggling with going from A to E, there's a good reason for it. Alright everybody, those are just some really cool ideas that you can play around with, practice, experiment with, explore with. We will no doubt touch on the subject again soon. If you've got any questions, problems, or anything, you can write in the comment section below. Happy practicing, everybody. See you next time.